Why don't we join forces and buy a new house as a gift for the upcoming holiday? John offered enthusiastically, his eyes shining with excitement and joy at the idea. He laughed, very pleased and excited about the upcoming project, saying, "Haha, really a delightful thought." Then he quickly added for our comfort, "Don't worry about the details, we've already taken the first steps. The plot has been purchased and construction work has already begun. Now all we need to do is raise the necessary funds to complete this large-scale project." His face was lit up with a smile, sincere and wide, reflecting his anticipation and optimism about this wonderful undertaking. Besides, my future daughter-in-law is delighted and very excited. Seeing them in such a happy state, the relatives, at first surprised by John's statement, began to smile amiably. "But that's too much to ask of Ren. Is that really okay with you?" I ask, seeing how my son-in-law legitimately seeks my approval. "Don't be shy, of course it's okay, right?" John addresses me with an enthusiastic mood, waiting for my consent. To which I reply, "Why should we think that the child should be yours, right? I talked about this earlier, but the festive mood instantly froze." "What do you mean, this child of Ren and John? What are you talking about?" Suddenly they ask, and both start to panic, while everyone else looks at me puzzled, watching their reaction. One spring day, when the sun was shining especially brightly and the air was filled with freshness and the promise of new beginnings, I decided to invite someone special to explore and appreciate some places together that are of great importance to me. I wanted to see as my companion in this adventure a person who would not only share my interests, but also bring a unique perspective and wisdom to our time together. After introducing myself, I began my address like this: "My name is Ren Manson, and this year I turned 25 years old. I recently got married, and this new stage in my life was marked by many changes and new beginnings. My first year of marriage was truly unforgettable and revealing, because my family can be described as quite well off and wealthy. The well-being of our family is largely determined by our real estate holdings. We own several significant properties, among which there are apartments located in the most prestigious and desirable areas of the city. These apartments are usually always in a state of full occupancy, and the income from them is very significant and quite sufficient to provide our family with a comfortable and carefree life." After finishing the presentation, I moved on to the essence of the proposal. "Ren, would you like to join me in this exciting activity to explore and evaluate our real estate properties together? It will be a great opportunity not only to spend time together, but also to get to know the family business better, assess its potential and, perhaps, introduce new ideas to its development." My maternal grandmother, who has been managing our apartments for many years, responded to my proposal. She happily agreed to join me on this journey, saying, "Yes, of course, Ren. I will be happy to take part in this venture with you. This will be a great opportunity not only to strengthen our family ties, but also to share with you the accumulated experience and knowledge in the real estate industry." Thus, it was decided that together we would go to inspect our properties to personally verify their condition, assess opportunities for further development and investment, and discuss possible strategies for managing and optimizing rental income. This joint visit will not only be an opportunity for business evaluation, but also a chance to spend time together, exchange views and plans for the future, strengthen our mutual understanding and family ties, as well as enrich our family history with new memories and achievements. At the same time, my grandmother, grandfather, and relatives on my father's side, who are engaged in agriculture, use fertile plots of land for the daily cultivation of fragrant vegetables. Many employees of our farm praise our products for their exceptional taste, thanks to which they find their consumers in prestigious restaurants and cozy hotels with a long history. Thinking about the future, I am seriously considering the possibility of taking over the management of a farming business. Rin, do you think this kind of activity would suit me? Although my preference is inclined to the administration of the housing stock, which my brother Mike plans to take over with his family. Mike had a passion for agricultural activities since childhood and decided to master the art of farming without even discussing this issue. His family is also very willing to get involved in working on the land, competing in diligence with employees. Therefore, When I chose to manage the residential complex, I did not meet any resistance. Everyone expressed their support, assuring us of their approval of our decision. Considering that I am already quite a few years old, perhaps it's time to give Ren the opportunity to prove himself, so in the near future I may completely transfer all responsibility for running the business to him. The ability to lead an independent life, relying on income without active participation, has always seemed attractive to me, which explained my dedication to family and business. Romantic relationships remained outside of my priorities, as I had not dated anyone for a long time. My parents, taking care of my future, decided to arrange a match for me, and that's how I met John Wilson, who turned out to be a couple of years older than me. His maturity and extensive knowledge instantly attracted me. I've always been impressed by people who are passionate about their work. Under the influence of his words, I started to develop my own business, having received approval from my grandmother. John supported my efforts, and, after his marriage proposal, I agreed to become his wife. My brother took over the management of the family business, and I decided to take my husband's last name, thus welcoming him into our family as a son-in-law. His kindness strengthened my feelings for him. Working for an international company, John provided our family with a comfortable life, and his relatives welcomed me warmly. After retiring, I plan to take up farming, and my father-in-law has always given me useful advice. Ren, my mother-in-law, shares with me a passion for needlework, which makes our communication especially pleasant. Our son-in-law, who lives with us, is a gentle and caring person, and his whole family takes care of me. I am happy to be a part of such a house. However, there is one discord in this harmonious atmosphere: my daughter-in-law, my son-in-law's wife. It seems that she and John have been friends since childhood, and I did not hesitate to move in with them. She behaves too familiarly, claiming that she knows my husband better than me. I am grateful for her advice, but sometimes it seems intrusive. Rin doesn't mind what she says, but my brother-in-law sometimes expresses dissatisfaction with her behavior, and John always supports me. I understand that my sister-in-law may feel neglected because of our close relationship with John, but I'm sure that things will settle down over time. My positivity and calmness help me cope with these unpleasant moments. John appreciates my optimism and supports me in ignoring his sister's displeasure. Our house is only a few minutes from my relative's house, and they often call me to their place. Although my relatives sometimes express concern that I spend too much time at my husband's house, I explain to them that family farming and greenhouses require the constant attention of my brother and his family, and my help is not required there. Despite this, I try to visit them as often as possible. Every time I come to my relative's house, my sister-in-law tries to show that I am a burden to the family. But my relatives always greet me with a smile and tell me that I should feel at home here. Despite the unpleasant words of my daughter-in-law, I maintain a positive attitude and continue to build harmonious relationships with all members of my large and loving family. These words fell on me like drops of cold water when I heard my family telling my daughter-in-law that she should stop interfering in matters where her presence is inappropriate. Her indignation quickly subsided thanks to the efforts of Jane and my son-in-law, who calmed her down. Despite their efforts, I felt that the relationship between my daughter-in-law and me would remain strained. It's going to be a long way, I thought, watching her. The delay from work became routine for John, and I began to worry. His late returns home are probably related to the tense situation at work, although my own affairs, despite the timing, did not know such periods of tension. I tried to understand his situation, but deep down I had doubts. I waited for John every night, and when he returned, his gentle voice always calmed me down. One day, when he returned late, I offered him a snack, and I decided to cook something for both of us. Picking up his work bag, I felt a familiar scent of perfume that made me stop. "How are you?" John asked, noticing my confusion. I honestly admitted that I could smell perfume. He explained that he had met a man who used strong perfumes. I recognized this fragrance. It was my sister-in-law's perfume, which she recently spoke about with pride. When John left to wash, I continued to cook, thinking about the situation. Why did John smell like my sister-in-law's perfume? My thoughts were interrupted by his sudden appearance. I just realized that the smell is the same as your sister-in-law's perfume, he said, looking puzzled. His reaction only reinforced my doubts. We ate in silence and went to bed. Despite the unresolved issues in our relationship, I decided not to put pressure on him. The next morning, before leaving for work, John promised to return early. This incident has left me with mixed feelings. On the one hand, I wanted to trust my husband, but on the other hand, I couldn't ignore the doubts that crept into my heart. My task now is to understand what is really going on in our relationship and resolve all unresolved issues. The next morning, saying goodbye to John, I started washing his clothes from the previous day. At that moment, a pair of earrings fell out of his pocket. They were unique, the work of Sean's hands, who was engaged in making jewelry as a hobby. John never had the skills to create such a creation. My sister-in-law Emma recently showed off these earrings to me, which only reinforced my suspicions after yesterday. I realized that I could not ignore the situation and began to reflect on my next actions, holding the earrings I found in my hands. Shortly after that, I received a call from my in-laws. The news of Emma's pregnancy and my upcoming status as a grandmother hit me like a bolt from the blue. "Rin, are you okay?" "I just wanted to make sure you were okay," my brother asked, noticing my excitement. I shared my concerns with him and he promised to support me in any situation. Having decided to help my relatives and visit them more often, I tried to ignore the whims of Emma, who behaved very demanding in her position. She skillfully played the role of suffering from morning sickness in front of others, but when we were alone, she did not hide her contempt for me. Despite everything, John expressed his gratitude to me for Emma's support, which made me think about his true feelings and thoughts towards me. The thought that he might not be completely sincere with me bothered me. When the baby was finally born, I saw the joy in John's eyes and felt relieved. He offered to chip in together and buy a new house for a young family as a gift. This proposal sounded like a step towards resuming family unity. The house they lived in really needed renovation, and the prospect of moving to a new home seemed encouraging. I considered the opportunity to help not only financially, but also in matters of choosing land for a new home. This step could be the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship and the restoration of trust and harmony in the family. His statements stunned me with their unexpected bravery. It seemed that John himself understood his audacity to some extent. His manner was full of apologies. She, a significant lady and a companion of our young years, prompted me to look at John more closely. Nevertheless, John stubbornly avoided my gaze, evading it for long moments. Then a thought flashed into my mind: everything will be fine. I turned to my grandmother with a question about the availability of a suitable plot of land. "Thank you, Rin," I replied a moment later, when Emma's condition began to improve, and we decided to organize a solemn meeting in her honor with the participation of her loved ones. Emma, in the role of the main character of the celebration, was showered with blessings and congratulations from all those present. "You did a great job, thank you," Emma beamed with pleasure at receiving so much attention. Then, perhaps under the influence of alcohol, John suddenly showed extraordinary energy. "Let's chip in and give them a new house." "Ah, really, I'm so glad that the site has already been purchased and construction has begun, so we just need to collect deposits," John said with a joyful smile. Emma also radiated joy and excitement at seeing them so happy. Relatives, at first puzzled by John's proposal, soon responded with warm smiles. "Is this really too much, Rin? Are you sure?" my son-in-law asked, looking guiltily at me for approval. "Go ahead, of course, it's all right," John replied cheerfully, turning to me for confirmation. I nodded, adding, "Why not? Because the baby should be yours, right?" With this revelation, the old holiday atmosphere suddenly became tense. "What do you mean? This kid? Yamrin, what are you talking about?" John suddenly exclaimed. "Yes, this baby undoubtedly belongs to Shasu." Both began to panic. Everyone present turned to me, full of bewilderment, while I watched their reaction, deciding to call someone to the place. "I'm sorry to intrude, but are you Ren's brother by any chance?" I asked the man I had summoned, my brother. His relatives were stunned by his unexpected arrival. "Oh, Mike!" my brother-in-law exclaimed, surprised by the appearance of my brother. In fact, my brother and son-in-law had known each other since the wedding, where they had fun chatting, finding a common language. "So you're his brother?" my brother asked amiably, showing a photo on his mobile phone. "Wait, but there's no way in these pictures that Emma and John are getting closer, so this is quite acceptable even for childhood friends, let alone spouses." While my brother was flipping through the gallery, photos of their arrival at the hotel appeared on the screen. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It's a fake, don't believe it," John protested, turning sharply to my brother. My brother just smiled lazily, noting, "I was just helping my sister, using my knowledge and our parents' connections." At that moment, John's gaze slid in my direction. I bowed my head, saying thoughtfully, "Did you want to be caught in the act of showing such evidence? A demonstration? What are you talking about?" John reacted with bewilderment. Then I took out the earrings. For a moment Emma seemed scared, but then she took on the image of an ignoramus again. "Did you have these earrings?" "I thought I'd lost them," he defended himself. "They weren't lost. You left them on purpose, didn't you? Along with the perfume?" I continued. "I found out that these perfumes were produced in a limited edition and were intended only for the first 5 buyers, and not for the general public. The fact that I recognized the smell suggests that you were close enough, right?" I said, looking at John, who suddenly looked away. It is so transparent that I cannot resist looking away when something causes dissatisfaction. This is my fate. My own sister-brother showed up here today with the intention of breaking the marriage bond with me and requesting his assistance in transporting my personal belongings, as well as showing me evidence of my unauthorized clanging with to others. John's face faded at my statements. He tried to grab my hand, begging me to wait a little longer, but the matchmaker grabbed him tightly by the shoulders, making it clear that it was time to have a serious conversation and discuss the divorce procedure. His voice sounded especially full of indignation when John turned to my spouse's relatives, and they all chained to us their views. Together with my brother, we left this place amid the thunder of voices and laughter of my husband's relatives. Although our parents did not pay the slightest attention to this situation, my brother laughed, remembering how once, when I was just getting married, he told me that if there were problems, I could always turn to ask him for advice, especially considering that relationships in our family can be quite confusing. This advice made me turn to him in the first place now, and it seemed that he already foresaw the difficulties in the relationship between my husband and Emma, which became known to him from the husband himself. Sean seemed to be acting normally, but that was far from the truth when it came to the interference of childhood friends in each other's personal relationships. Obviously, Emma, despite the age difference, actively interfered in the relationship between John and my husband. Emma had a strong connection with our children's company, and she did not allow anyone, even old friends, to come between them. It was interesting. Did Emma really have feelings for both of them? My brother asked this question quietly, and I realized that he meant something more. A few days after that, I filed for divorce, and since then, Jane and Emma have been isolated from the Ives family. I was sincerely sorry for the concern I created, but my husband shared the latest news with me. He immediately conducted a DNA test that confirmed that Emma's child was indeed John's. My husband questioned them, trying to find out the reasons for their actions, noting that they were acting on his behalf, but I simply could not allow someone to violate our childhood friendship. As I suspected, Emma didn't like my presence, and both John and my husband were dear to her. She admitted that she had left jewelry on purpose to emphasize her position. Jane has always been warm to Emma, but when I found out about her feelings for my brother, I backed off, and he, eager to move on, decided to tie the knot with me. However, when Emma began to show interest in him, he lost his way, which led to subsequent events, which John openly told my husband about. I listened carefully to my son-in-law's words, sincerely thanking him for his openness and honesty in conversation. It was obvious that he was going through hard times, feeling very tired and exhausted from the current situation. It was obvious that his relationship with Emma was initially nothing more than a childhood friendship, the memories of which remained serene and relaxed. However, When the moment came when he began to think about finding a woman with whom he would like to spend his whole life, Emma, with persistence and obsession, intervened in his life, striving to take a special place in it. Despite my doubts and skepticism, I was initially inclined to ignore her interest, understanding her one-sided affection for John. My son-in-law started dating Emma, more under the influence of John's persistent persuasion and pressure from their common parents than because of his own feelings. Over time, however, he developed a deep affection for her, which eventually led him to decide to officially link his life with Emma. Now, in light of Emma's betrayal, all his feelings and attachments seemed to have completely disappeared, as if they had disappeared into the fog of her infidelity. He expressed his feelings and thoughts, and I could fully sympathize and understand the depth of his emotional disappointment and pain. He stood in front of me as a man who had experienced a deep personal tragedy but was determined to move on, and I couldn't help but admire his strength and courage during this difficult period of his life. I myself once fell in love with John, but when I realized his betrayal, my love turned into anger. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. John expressed his intentions to divorce when he explained his plans to Emma, to which she responded with a furious reaction. My husband's relatives eventually lost their patience and collectively kicked Emma out the door. John could only watch impotently, having lost his feelings for her, especially after she tried to give up her own child. Emma tried to contact John, but he ignored her calls in front of everyone. After the reprimand, John returned to his parents and then called me, sobbing that my things were missing and admitting that maybe he had feelings for me. "Thanks for the information," I said. "Yes, my parents appreciate you very much, so they will be happy if you visit them sometimes." I respect his parents and promise to continue to see them. My son-in-law thanked me and ended the conversation. Returning to work, I thought about my new life in the house that was originally intended for Emma, located near my rental apartments. My old grandmother will also move in with me after completing all the preparations for her arrival. I decided to focus on my work, as my brother advised. Remembering my brother's words after talking to my son-in-law, I came to the conclusion that Emma began to put pressure on her son-in-law when he began to look for a life friend, and when John got married, she began to harass his wife, and eventually began to flirt with him. Perhaps Emma had never really loved any of them. She wanted to keep her place in the trio of childhood friends, and although John could have been her victim, he was also guilty of allowing this to happen. Sometime after these reflections, the doorbell rang. "Wait, I'll be right there," I said, walking to the door. It was John. I barely recognized him when I saw how confused he was. "Come in," I invited him in, noticing his confused state. John followed me inside while I continued to work. "I see you're busy," he began. "I'm sorry to bother you." "Remind me, my other job is writing." Writing seems to suit me, as I'm getting more and more requests for my work. What started as a side job now takes up most of my time. I thought it would be better if my main activity was passive income. "I'm very sorry about what happened," he concluded. Jay Norton seriously apologized to me. The words about the divorce and rain made me realize how much you mean to me. Jay started the conversation by admitting that he realized how deep his feelings for me were and expressed regret for his infidelity. Then he apologized again, but did not mention the desire to resume our relationship. I couldn't take my eyes off him, and Jay smiled at me. "Ray, I really want to start over, but maybe you don't feel the same way?" I nodded, admitting, "Honestly, I don't deserve a second chance with you. I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness." His words sounded like it was the same Jay that I once loved, but that love seemed lost. "I'm sorry, but alimony is listed in this notebook." Jay left the notebook and left, leaving me alone with the thought that if he had realized his feelings for me earlier, maybe things would have turned out differently. "Hey, I know you're here," came the voice of Emma, who was knocking on the door, blaming me for her unhappiness after she was rejected by her spouse's relatives. Apparently, after rejecting relatives, Emma returned to her parents, who, after hearing the story from her husband's family, also rejected her. She tried to approach Jay again, but when she saw him leaving, she followed him and found me. Without question, she began to argue that I should take responsibility and support her. Responsibility? What are you talking about?" I asked, without opening the door and talking through the intercom. "You're the one who separated us. Just open the door." Emma started to knock loudly on the door, but then someone put a hand on her shoulder. Turning around, Emma saw my son-in-law with obvious displeasure on his face. The police were standing next to him, who subsequently took her away. After Emma left, I opened the door. "You must have been scared. I'm sorry, but that's all I can do," my brother-in-law said, explaining that Jay saw Emma coming towards me and immediately contacted him, and he called the police. "You have to file a statement on this incident," he added. "Yes, I've already thought about it," I replied, looking around the neighborhood. Suddenly I noticed Jay at some distance. He bowed respectfully and left, trying to maintain his calm and dignity. In the end, I filed a complaint, I muttered, watching his retreating figure. My son-in-law nodded in agreement, confirming my words. As a result of my report, Emma avoided jail time. Despite having to pay compensation, Emma faced a burden of debt during her pregnancy. During the same period, John decided to sell the house and apply for a transfer, going to a remote area alone, arguing in front of my son-in-law that it was difficult for him to stay near Ren. His new place of work turned out to be so far away that Emma, limited by debts, could not follow him. When Emma turned to me for help, my son-in-law treated her requests indifferently, taking on all the responsibilities of caring for the child. "Don't worry, my parents are here, we will manage," he said with a smile, reassuring me and other relatives that the baby will be well looked after. He also announced a change of address, as he decided to move with his parents from the old house, partly to get rid of Emma's interference. "We will be glad to see you in our new home if you have the opportunity," he offered me, expressing a desire to keep in touch. My grandmother, with whom I live, despite her age, remains active and teaches me the importance of movement to maintain health. Her support and help around the house allow me to focus on work, for which I am immensely grateful. My parents, having learned about the incident through my brother, were shocked and apologized to me, realizing that their initiative to arrange my marriage had led to such consequences. They expressed regret and offered me the freedom to choose my future path. Currently, my life has been transformed into an oasis of calm and peacefulness, where every day is filled with productive work that brings satisfaction and joy. In this peaceful existence, I sometimes get news about John, which eloquently indicates that he manages to find harmony and well-being in his new place of residence. This comforts my soul, because despite all the vicissitudes of our common past, I sincerely wish him happiness. My son-in-law, a man with a big heart and a sense of responsibility, continues to support Emma by regularly sending her alimony. This action clearly demonstrates his nobility and concern for the well-being of their common child. Meanwhile, Emma, unfortunately, remains isolated from the outside world, which is probably a consequence of her previous actions and decisions. My communication with friends and relatives, which happens from time to time, has become an integral and valuable part of my life. I diligently maintain warm and friendly relations with my ex-husband's family, finding exceptional pleasure and joy in these meetings. Communication at various family events and events fills my life with new colors and pleasant emotions. It is especially touching for me that my son-in-law has found new happiness in a relationship with a woman who was his classmate in the past. My brother actively helped him in this, whose actions not only contributed to the emergence of new relationships, but also became a source of great joy for me. To see my son-in-law smiling and enjoying life again, knowing that he has found someone who can give him warmth and care, fills my heart with gratitude and happiness. A chance meeting with one of my colleagues, who, according to my brother, is interested in me, opens up a new opportunity for personal happiness. Motivated by the support of my loved ones, I decide to give this new relationship a chance, striving to build a happy family without any compromises or external pressure, looking to the future with confidence and optimism.